Well, you can do all those things and so much more. Just grab a seat in the chair or the floor. Sit back, relax, recline. While she drops another casual line. You're tuned into Casually Molly with Molly and Bergie.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Casually Molly podcast. I am, of course, your host, Molly Ambergy. We are back this week to interview the wonderful, the famous Andy Hamilton. Hey!
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, yeah, no. Well, for those of you who don't know, a lot of people who are probably watching this are very familiar with St. Louis comedy, but Andy Hamilton and I both do comedy here in the wonderful city of St. Louis, Missouri. Andy, I always used to do this earlier on in the podcast, which I'm sure you remember because Andy has, I say this like he's not sitting right next to me, but Andy has been a fellow guest ever since the beginnings of Casually Molly. You were in the basement.
This might be my third time.
Yeah, exactly. It was.
Wow, I just realized that. I feel so honored. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, of course. Here, cheers to that. I know,
Cheers.
Sorry, Monk, we're clinking our things, but it's the sound effect for those of you who are listening. We don't mean to clink anything in the microphones. It's just that we got to cheer. We got to celebrate after the crazy year of 2020 we've been having.
Absolutely.
But you.
I wish I would have brought alcohol now, but.
Oh, it's all right. Wait, what are you drinking? What's your orange drink?
I'm pretty spontaneous, so.
Yeah.
I saw a Mountain Dew Live Wire at the gas station, and I just bought it.
And you were like, this is me living life on the edge.
Yeah,
I got
pretty
a
much.
Mountain Dew.
I was like, wow, it's one of those things you see at the store, and like, I haven't had this in a couple years. I'm gonna try it. I need a Spark Live Wire. So
all
I
right.
went with it. Yeah.
I was about to say, I'm really living life on the edge because I have water on ice. It's a really good cocktail. Everybody should try it sometime. So
I definitely could have brought, if I was thinking ahead, I could have brought some whiskey or bourbon or, Maker's Mark or something.
well, it's not like we don't live close to each other.
Yeah,
so.
we could do that later this week.
I was about to say, you can always just pop over to our house. So
That's what we do.
well, I remember in the earlier podcasts that we've had, I used to be like, so how did we meet? But then, of course, like as you grow and continue to interview people, you don't always like have people that you met unless you interview them. But Andy and I think I first met you because our mutual friend, Kate Barton, who's also a St. Louis comedian, we were at the Improv Shop, I think just hanging out at the bar. And she was like, hey, Molly, this is Andy. Andy, this is Molly. And so I kind of just got thrown into talking to you. And I was just like, hi, what's up? And then we've been friends basically ever since.
Ever since that encounter. Yeah, I remember talking to Kate, and then she's like, this is my friend Molly, bye.
Yeah, that's exactly
like,
what
Molly,
happened.
What's going on? And I was like, and then, somebody I'd never seen before, I'm like, are you from here? And you're like, I'm from Cincinnati, and this and that. And I don't know, I wasn't sure how long you'd been in St. Louis, but, found that out later. So good times at the Improv Shop.
Yeah.
I hope they come back soon.
Well, I know their bar is open now, so that's kind of cool. We'll have to pop in there and just and recreate this story, except now we're friends, I guess, going.
Well, what was that, 3 years ago now?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah, 3 or 4, like maybe 4 now because it's 2021.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. Isn't that crazy to think about? We're like, well, why don't you tell us a little bit about the show that you have coming up? Monk, whenever you're ready, if you'd like to present the flyer for us, and Andy can tell us a little bit about it for those watching on YouTube or Facebook. Woo, woo! Look at that fancy flyer. Yes, absolutely. We're doing a little Vanna White over here.
Yeah.
Yes, there we Oh, see, you're doing
I'm trying.
better.
The reverse. I can't get the hand. Yeah, so I can talk about this for a second.
Yeah.
I guess before I present the lineup, the last O'Fallon Out Loud show that we did was actually July of 2020, so it's been almost a year, and I wanted to do one back in November, but COVID was going crazy and we had to cancel it, unfortunately, but we're back. We got a great lineup. Saturday, July 17th at Rendezvous Cafe in O'Fallon, Missouri. Scott James is headlining, and we're also going to have Reggie Edwards, a.k.a. The GOAT, who's been a guest of yours, and also Philip Cornell. So we got a good lineup. And if you've never been to Rendezvous, it's a really awesome place. It's a wine bar and cafe. So they got a ton of different wines, a big selection of bourbons and whiskey. Also a pretty good selection of beer like Schlafly and just Four Hands, local stuff like that. And so when you combine that with a good comedy show, and for only $10 a ticket, it's a pretty good time. It's not a big place. We only sell about 50 tickets, so I always tell people, seating is limited. So get your ticket. You got about 3.5 weeks to get your tickets. So be sure to call the system we have right now. You call the cafe. It's 636-281-2233, and the flyer, we have the flyer posted up right now. So just give them a call, say I want two spots to the show, and they'll put your name down, and simple as that.
And what's kind of cool, Andy kind of highlighted this a little bit, but you see the great headshot of the great Scott James, who has been on this podcast. In fact, your whole lineup, Reggie Edwards, Reggie the Goat Edwards, and Philip Cornell. So if you want to check out their episodes, they've all been featured on Casually Molly, and you can get to know them a little bit better, Andy included.
Absolutely.
Before you go buy your tickets to see the O'Fallon Out Loud show. Speaking of O'Fallon Out Loud, Andy's been on this podcast a few times to talk about O'Fallon Out Loud. But for those of you who are just tuning in, why don't you tell us just a brief storyline as to how O'Fallon Out Loud came to be and how you were the producer of it?
I'll so back in, it's hard to believe I've been producing this show for 5 years now, exactly, because this show itself, O'Fallon Out Loud, has actually been going on for I think since 2012, actually. So almost 9 years. A gentleman by the name of Sean Arredondo, who a lot of people know still in the St. Louis scene. He started the show in O'Fallon, and he moved to California in 2016 and asked me, I think he asked me around January of that year if I wanted to take over, and I was only a year into comedy. I didn't really even know what I was doing, and I was like, sure, sounds like fun, and to give me an opportunity to just get more stage time and start hosting and things like that. And so I worked with him for a couple months. He kind of showed me the ropes, and then I took over full time in June of 2016. And I'd say the first couple years I just felt like an obligation to try to do it monthly, but over time I learned, to just kind of just pick the dates that I felt were the best to produce a show. I didn't really I don't know why I felt like that, maybe just because he did that, but after the first year I was like, the show would be better if you keep the audience wanting more, and maybe you skip a month and people are like, oh, we're ready to come back to a show, which I hope is the case now. It's been a year. So I don't know, right now I try to do, in a normal year, back in 2019, I probably did 7 or 8 shows, so not 12, but obviously the summer months are pretty tough with comedy and different holidays, trying to work around holidays and stuff. But yeah, just to summarize, I've been doing it about 5 years, and I just try to bring really good headliners. We do it club style, so I have headliners not only from St. Louis, but I've had Tim Northern from Louisville, Kentucky, and I've had James Johan from Kansas City area, and a few others. So try to have a headliner, your feature, a little guest spot, and yours truly always hosts up top, so you get to see 4 comics every single show. And I try not to make the shows too long. I usually try to do about an hour, 20 minutes or so. I always feel like that's the best.
Yeah.
Hour and 20, hour and a half. I think once you get over an hour and a half, the audience, like I said, you kind of want to leave them wanting more, not leave them restless or anything. So just try to from start to finish, try to put together a good product, because obviously my name's on it. And,
of course. Yeah.
And I just try to pick. I'm all for giving people opportunities for sure, but I also try to pick the best of the best as far as headlining and featuring.
Sure.
And just, I like when people come up to us after the show like, wow, I've never seen this guy or this girl before, and they'll ask the comics where else they perform, and hey, when's the next show? And this is great. We got to see somebody different, and it's nice to have repeats. Like I've had Chris Sear on. I've had Scott James, I think, has actually done the show more than anybody.
Yeah, Chris Sear, Scott James, all great
JC
St. Louis comedians.
JC Sabala.
Yeah, we just had him on. JC's great.
Yeah, but there's also, I have a lot of names in my head right now, such as Molly Ambergy that I haven't booked yet for O'Fallon Out Loud. So stay tuned for that.
All right. Hey, I'll take a booking. Why not? That's all right.
And
we're not going to be friends anymore because I haven't been on the show. I mean, obviously, we haven't.
But well, I could probably name 10 comics off the top of my head that I haven't booked. Like, oh man, I'd love to have this comic or that comic at my show, but like I said, when you're just doing it once a month or once every couple months, you can only book so many people.
Well, that's what I like about, so I think this happens a lot, and especially if you're really invested in producing things. Like I understand production because for those of you just tuning in or people that know me personally, I'll just explain the whole story again. I was a theater major. I've been in theater basically my whole life and in dance, and then for 5 years, I just ran like a little sole proprietor company called Good People Theater. And I ran that for 5 years. And I took plays to Chicago. I did plays here. I did plays in Cincinnati, Kentucky, just like basically in the Midwest. And then eventually comedy kind of takes over. But why I bring this up is because you, and then you're really good friends with my boyfriend, Jimmy Day, as well. We'll go out to Cooper's, which is a cute little like sports bar up the street from where we all live. And, what'll happen a lot. Yeah. Good plug if Cooper's not sponsored, but hey, if you think about it. So no, great food for a sports bar. I got to tell you, that buffalo chicken wrap is our favorite meal. Like Jimmy's like, you guys need to switch it up. And Andy and I are like,
I have been.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, so Andy has stepped up his game from the buffalo chicken wrap.
But you know what? I just went to wings instead.
Oh, well, that's
So
true.
just
The
cut out
wings
the
are
wrap.
pretty good. If you like meat, the wings, I gotta say, they have some pretty good wings there. And I'm not a huge wing person, but I do support the wings at Cooper's. But why I say that is we'll get into deep discussions about production and putting things together. And what I love about you, and I think that's why you and I always kind of feel like you're the guy version of me in a sense. Like we both get along really well with people. Like we both, you know what I mean though?
Okay.
Like, but you're like, I don't know. Not
No,
exactly.
I get what you're saying.
You know
Go
what I
ahead,
mean
yeah.
though? Yeah. Like, and I feel like you have production wise the same thoughts as me on stuff. What I see when you talk about producing things is obviously you want to make a great show, but I feel like you bringing a show, especially to Rendezvous Cafe, which is not necessarily a club venue, but you run a professional show in a different venue to bring that kind of work to a community setting. How do you feel about like kind of building that community there where somewhere in O'Fallon, if they haven't seen comedy before, you're kind of bringing that first to mind?
Yeah, there's, obviously, there's a good club in O'Fallon as well now, but back when I
Right.
took over in 2016, it was, there wasn't anything in St. Charles County at all, just let alone O'Fallon. So I liked when I saw what Sean was doing, I liked the idea of bringing comedy to a smaller town. And to me, and just based on what people tell me after the show, it works. It's a really good date night for people that have kids, and it's a wine bar, as we mentioned. So it's a good spot for couples to come out. It's affordable. We just keep it at $10 for now, which is very reasonable. So I figure a couple can go out, $10 a ticket, you're at $20. You buy food and drinks and stay under $100. And, and if you live in O'Fallon or St. Peter's or wherever, you're probably a close drive from your house, and, drop the kids off the babysitter, leave them home. Like, hey, the show's at 8:30 to 10 roughly. You can get home at, by 10:30, 11. So it's a good night out for people. And I think that's the thing I enjoy about it the most, is just give people an opportunity to come out, have a good time. Obviously, comedy and entertainment is a way to escape from your job or your problems or anything else going on in life, just for a little bit. Have a laugh and see some comics that you've never seen before, who you never know might see on TV, or you've already seen on TV in the case of maybe a James Johan or somebody like that. So I think that's the thing I like about it the most. And like you said, I try to keep it as professional as possible. Every detail, like the sound, the lights, I set up all that stuff. I do the marketing. I kind of just do it. The cafe helps me out a lot, but I try to just run it from start to finish meaning like now till 10 o'clock on July 17th, everything. And I'll admit, I can kind of, like the day of the show, I can kind of be a pain in the ass, especially to the staff. I mean, I treat the staff really well, but I mean, I'm sure the owners will tell you I want everything. I'm like, hey, can we kick on these ceiling fans? Hey, what about this light? Hey, what about this table right here? And I'm just going through every single detail. So, like, man, this guy will not shut up, And
I can feel that way though. That's how I am during, like, they call it a tech rehearsal in theater, and that's how I am too. Like when we would do tech, I'm like, we need sound, we need this. That's also going to happen with the coasters a lot. When you have like a drink that gets a lot of fluid.
Sorry,
Monk, we're going to have some sound effects. It's a coaster. Boom. There's the,
I'll watch that.
No, it happens to me all the time. We were talking about a very serious thing one time on an episode, and I had the coaster fall. I was like, I am so sorry. I did not mean to take away from that. But I know when you're like the pain in the ass, because again, not to be like Andy's the guy version of me, but why I say that is production wise, we both think the same in that, when you have like, when I even did like small vignettes in one act, so it was the same thing where people are like, wow, Molly's not that friendly right now. I'm like, I know, because this whole show is riding on me, like pulling the strings here and being like, because obviously you hire great people to do what they do, but because you care about those people that you hired and you want them to have a good experience to work with you again, they're like, let's make sure this works. So I think that's actually more admirable that you're, really caring as much and doing stuff, but then you probably feel super relaxed at the end. So
yeah, and that's actually a good, really good point that you brought up is that I didn't mention is, if I book a really good headliner, even if they're local, like Scott James is local, but he's great, and I want Scott to want to come back and do the show. I like having Scott out, and like say I've had like Rafe Williams, and if I have somebody from out of town, I want them to be like, wow, this is a pretty good show. Got paid, had a good time, the crowd was great, no issues. I was able to do my set. Andy put on a great production. And then if I contact him a year later or something like, hey, you want to come do the show again? Probably more times than not, hopefully, it would be like, wow, yeah, that was a great time. I'd love to come back, and, great. And then, it makes my job a lot easier going forward. It's like, okay, they already told me they want to come back. They had a good time. Where, if you have a crappy setup, or, you don't have crowd control, or something's out of place, they might hesitate in the future to come back. So and even I mentioned headliners, but even just the features and guest spots, whoever it is, I want everybody to have a good time. So I mentioned Scott, but also Reggie and Philip and whoever else I give opportunities to. So but yeah, so I guess in that regard, we're both the same. We take the shows really seriously.
Yes.
And like I said, yeah, I get there early the day of the show, and the one thing I do that maybe some people do and maybe not, so we start the show at 8:30, but I usually get to the cafe around noon or 1 o'clock, and I set up all the sound and lights and go through it all, way 8 hours before the show. And that way, and Sean taught me that, that way if you run into any issues, maybe a cord's busted or a light's not working or there's something, or the microphone doesn't work, then at least you have 8 hours to fix the problem or call up somebody, hey, can I borrow your microphone or whatever. So rather than you set up everything at 7 o'clock and you're like, oh crap, my show is about to start, what am I going to do? And then you just avoid any issues down the road. So so I've just kind of tried to do that every show.
Well, that's professional though. Yeah.
Now, is every show going to go according to plan? As you know, never. It's like, but you hope 4 out of 5 times, you're just going to have a show with no issues, and maybe 9 out of 10 times. But there's always going to be that one show that's just like, either you got some hecklers in the crowd, or it's just like we had one show in the summer. It was just like 100 degrees in that place, and I
remember you telling me this.
I booked some big dudes. Like the whole lineup was like Rafe, big dude, Chris Sear, bigger dude. The other big dude was Rich Braun, and then skinny me. I'm just like, oh, it feels great in here.
Oh my god!
But it was June or July. This was maybe 2018 or something. But
okay,
it was June or July. I remember it was just like 100 degrees out. One of those hot summer days in St. Louis, and that was one of the times like, hey, we need to get these fans going.
Yeah.
And get this room cooled down, and they did, but it was kind of, too little too late on that. And I mean, they had the AC on, but it's just like you put 50 people in a room like that. It's just, you got to get the air flowing through there. So, but so like I said, first one back in a year. I'm going to, obviously we want it to go smoothly, but, and, just try to do our best to ensure that. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, I get it. Well, I can relate to your story because when I was in Cincinnati, I did a show that my friend, shout out to Will Bonfiglio, we wrote the show together called Is This Really Happening Right Now? And we did it here in St. Louis at, it is no longer in business, unfortunately, but it was this adorable coffee shop in Shaw neighborhood. For those of you who are familiar with the neighborhood, it was called Restituo. And this lady who ran it was very nice. It was like, yeah, you can do your show. We did for 2 nights. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to bring it to Cincinnati because the OTR district, which is over the Rhine, but they call it OTR, was really taking off, and theater scene is really big there. So I was like, I'm going to take it back to my hometown because my family hasn't seen some of my work. And I'll invite just like some press people and stuff to come in. And I had the same thing. It was just the same layout as Rendezvous with like the brick wall and just
cool.
Yeah. And the guy who ran it was called Simple Space. He was very sweet. He also had a theater background, so he put some lighting up. So we thought we were good to go. But what happened was, it was the same thing that happened with like the show you had with Rafe and Chris and Rich, was that it was like 100 degrees because Cincinnati weather, for those of you who aren't familiar, Cincinnati weather isn't different to St. Louis weather, but they're both Midwestern cities. It's humid as hell during the summer, and it was so hot, and it was the same thing. And I went in early. My niece was my assistant stage manager. Like, we set everything up, the chairs, like everything was ready to go. But because it was so warm, I didn't have box fans. So luckily the show was only 45 minutes long. But like, I was like, thanks so much for coming. Like, people, like, luckily I had a full bar of water and wine and stuff. So it wasn't like people were without, but it's still the worst feeling. You're like, oh my God. And I was running around, like people were trying to talk to me. And I was like, I'm trying to put a fan on. I'm trying to do this, but it's too little too late. Cause you're like, we're dying in here. So I'm not even a big dude per se. And I was sweating. Like, it was
no,
so.
Indeed, you're not.
I just was like, oh my God. But then the next night, because you went through that, which happens a lot in this industry, even when you're at a high end, you got a full, things can go wrong. And you just have to, you can't let people see it though. Like, if you had talked to like any of my family members, they would have been like, oh, she was great. She like handled it. Everything was fine. But inside I was like, man, I'm dying in here. I'm like, I can't,
I mean, you try to think of, it's just like, you try to think of everything, but there's always, you get to the show and there's always one more thing. You're like, oh man, I could have done this, or I forgot about this. And like, a lot of times I forget to put a stool on the stage, and somebody will be like, hey, is there a stool up there? Like, shit. Somebody,
and you're like the smallest things that I usually do.
So there's always, that's what I always tell myself. There's always one more thing. And I always just try to, it's like 8:15. I'm like, okay, what am I missing? Like, what did I forget? But yeah, I felt bad because like I just remember Rafe and Chris like sweating profusely. And it's like, man, I wish we had about 15 fans in here. It is what it is. On the flip side of that, I mean, I've done, like, we did a New Year's Eve show one time, and it was like, New Year's Eve, it was literally like 3 degrees outside, and and you see the weather forecast, and it's like the day before, I'm like, oh my God, nobody's going to come to the show. It's going to be single digits. Everybody's going to stay at home. But luckily I think we had 30 or 35 people out, which was in that room is actually really good. I mean, we always want to have 45 to 50, but luckily it all worked out. And we had a good time. We had some champagne and everything like that.
Sounds like a great show.
Yeah. But some of those shows too, even though it was New Year's, I remember I had one beer up until like 11:30 or 12 at night, and then I had a glass of champagne just because I'm just trying to make sure everything's going smoothly, and I'm making sure everybody else is having a good time, and that the comics are, anything they need, and help the staff, make sure they're doing okay. So I still had fun. It was New Year's Eve, but I didn't really start drinking until 12, which that's fine.
Oh yeah.
Wasn't really my plan to just get drunk during the show.
I can't like drink or eat when I'm running a show though. Like, even when I'm in a lineup for a show, like I'll maybe have like some water and stuff, maybe a whiskey on the rocks, but I don't push it. Like people want to, and I get it. Like people are like, want to buy you a shot? Like, or my friends would come and try to, and I'm just like, I really can't eat anything or do any. I just like, especially not to be like that I'm old, but now that I've gotten older, I can't have the same amount of alcohol I used to. I really don't drink a lot anymore, to be honest. So that's why I'm like literally like maybe when we go to Cooper. No, I wish I wish that wasn't the case, but you know, can't do that much anymore. So I was
gonna say, I think I've seen you and Jimmy's liquor collection.
Oh yeah, well the bar is stocked. We're just waiting for somebody to come over, that way we can make you a drink.
Could be me.
Yeah, that could be you, Andy, because we were just saying that earlier. Come on over. But yeah, that's all Jimmy, because he stocked the bar. He had a barbecue. Was it Memorial Day weekend?
Yeah,
that was just recently. Yeah, and I was in Cincinnati, so you were at the barbecue. Everybody came over.
I was like,
so
I actually was like, hey, let me try some of this.
Oh yeah. So like, there's beer and stuff, but I don't drink beer, so it's a lot of him. But I do like. I'll be honest, I do like a mixed cocktail. I don't have like a favorite drink, but you know, it is what it is.
I don't know about you, but you know, we were talking about drinking during shows, but I remember my first year, I was stupid about like, I'd go to you go to an open mic, there's 20 comics. You're like, well, I'm 18th on the list, so I got a while. Shit, I'll get a drink. You get it one before the show, and then you get another one, and then you're 4 drinks deep, and then you got to go on stage. At, 18, I don't know what 18 times 5 is off the top of my head, but it's like probably 2 hours later, and then you're going on stage and things don't quite come out as you anticipated. And lesson learned. That was year 1 of comedy. I was like, I should really just stop drinking before I go on stage.
And don't worry, Andy, I don't think you're the first person that's made them.
No, not at all. And I try to, give, I hope I don't have to give that advice to anybody, but I feel like I have a time or two to the newer comics. Like, hey, just like a lot of people that, like especially smaller towns that don't go to clubs, they'll be like, I don't know if you get this, like, do you drink before you go on stage? Or because I'd have to get plastered before I told jokes. Just your common person that you run into at Cooper's and St. Peter's or Troy. Or
no one has ever told me that,
Really?
but maybe it's because I'm not very cool.
I get that all the time. Like, it'll be some redneck, hey man, you probably drink a lot before you go up telling jokes. I know I'd have to drink about 6. I was like, no, actually, I really don't drink at all before I go up. I might have like a beer, like if I'm sitting around for an hour, but that's about it. And I don't know. I get that. You don't ever get that?
Nobody ever says that to me. If anything, I just get, you just have a lot of energy. You've got a lot of energy. And I'm like, well, yeah, because you're going to be watching me for 10 to 15 minutes here. So yeah, man, I'm going to have I don't know. Some 40-year-old men in baseball caps, 40 and up. They're always like, you got a lot of energy. And I'm like, yes, I do. But speaking of energy, before I forget this, let's show some pictures of Rendezvous and all the energy that you've been bringing. Monk, whenever you're ready, you can just throw up one of these pics and we're going to dissect this a little bit. This is the new segment called Who Was at Rendezvous Cafe and Wine Bar with Andy Hamilton in St. Louis.
I feel like when I posted this on Instagram, everyone was like, this looks like the same guy, the same white guy, except maybe Randy. and then there's Randy in all black with his cap on. What do you call those hats? I don't know.
Anyway.
Yeah, so this is, I'll go from left to right. Randy Cash, Will O'Donnell, Rob Durham, and then myself, obviously. I forget, this one might have been right before COVID, actually. I want to say maybe like January of 2020 this was, but really fun show. All these guys did a great job. This is my first time booking Randy. He was great. Will is always a riot, talking about Quick Trip, and obviously Rob always puts on a great show. Maybe second to Scott, I've probably booked Rob the most out at Rendezvous. So
Rob Durham is also from Ohio, just FYI. Yeah.
He's a Columbus guy, right?
Yeah.
And you can see the background.
Sorry, Rob, if that's incorrect.
They actually got some, like when you walk in, this is all painting in the background, but the place looks really nice. So I don't know. That's picture number 1. So.
That's picture number 1. All right. Who else was at Rendezvous Cafe that you've... look at these players over here. I love it.
It's a sharp contrast from the previous picture. But Again, I like all these guys.
Who doesn't? These are my favorite people
Larry
in this photo.
Green
Nothing against people in the other photos.
Larry Green on the left, and then me in the middle, and then we got Duke Taylor, who headlined that show, and then JB on the right. And kind of the same as Randy. It was my first time booking JB. Just again, just one of those shows like, man, you know, this guy's a year in, maybe year and a half in, give him a spot. And I'm never going to book anybody who I'm not confident in. So I always book somebody, set them up for success, basically. And so Randy did a good job with his spot. JB crushed. He just keeps getting better. So that was a fun show. That was probably 2 summers ago, I think. I want to say that was maybe a June or July show.
Were you wearing the same shirt in the other photo?
Was I?
Here,
No.
can we go back to the other photo for a hot second?
No,
You
that's
were
a
not.
that's a you might have caught on. I wear a lot of these softball
That's what I
tees.
mean. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is.
That's a softball tee.
I was
but
about to say, you got a lot of softball
I
tees.
might have-
They're just different colors.
I think I gave that shirt to Goodwill, I'm pretty sure. Because I just moved recently, as you know. But this is my Ozzie Smith softball tee.
Oh, right. Changing
like
it
that.
up. And also, Larry and JB have both been on the Casually Molly podcast, and Will O'Donnell in the other photo has been too. So you've got a lot of
we've had 'em all,
casual
so,
guests on your shows.
Yeah, that was a really fun show. If I remember right, we had a packed house, sold out show for that one. So.
Oh, I mean, I don't blame. I mean, Duke Taylor as the headliner. Have not asked
Yeah.
him to be on this podcast, yes, but I should. But I recently saw him headline at the Funny Bone, and he's always fantastic, but Duke is one of those people where his energy, and his personality and his material, it just never gets old. Like
Yeah.
that Sonic bit is always going to be my favorite.
Absolutely.
There's another picture too that should be there just to give people who are watching an idea of what Rendezvous looks like. Yeah, there we go. Is that Rob?
Yep, that's
Yeah,
Rob
I thought
Durham.
so. Mhm.
So that's basically the stage. Obviously, I probably don't need to point that out. But,
Just so anybody knows, theater FYI, that is a stage.
but
Theater 101.
it gives you a good idea of kind of how the setup of the room, the crowd, and this is a great shot. Everybody's attentive. Rob obviously knows how to
Reel them in.
reel them in and get everybody's attention. And I'm sure he's about to deliver a really funny line in that picture. But
Yeah.
so yeah, these are great shows when you just got the tables closer together and you don't have to worry about contracting diseases like
Right.
COVID and other things. And so, and I think that's the best way. It might sound weird to somebody that's not familiar with comedy shows, but you kind of do want everybody like close together. You don't want pockets of tables and you don't want them spaced apart. So laughter is contagious. I think the way I've learned to set up the room is, you don't want everybody's elbows touching, obviously, but you want everybody's kind of packed in and having a good time, and it makes it easy for the staff too. So
I love making friends at shows. I've made a few friends. I went to see Nikki Glazer at the Funny Bone for one of her stray dog rescue fundraisers. And I mean, obviously it was sold out. And so the guy that was working the door, he was like, "We're sold out. I'm so sorry. Like, you're going to be on top of people." I was like, it's fine. I brought some of my girlfriends with me, and then we became friends with the people that were sitting in front of us. They were like, "It's our first time seeing Nikki live." And my one friend was like, "It's my first time too." And then it was so fun. I kind of miss that vibe of being on top. I know it sounds weird because I normally love my personal space, but it was kind of cool to bond with somebody over a show.
I'm sure we'll get back to that. We're almost there. I don't know, is the Funny Bone 100% capacity right now? Maybe?
I'm not really sure of anybody's policies right now. Which I know sounds terrible. I'm trying to do the best I can. I'm vaccinated, and I've been supporting the Funny Bone, Helium. I've been trying everything. So hopefully.
And I was going to mention, Joe Lenig, right?
Yeah.
He's got some great. When he's the doorman, which he's been working.
Joe was the person that was like, "We're sold out." I was like, "It's."
He's
cool.
got he actually has some really good stories about seating people at sold out shows, seating them behind pillars and posts. You should ask him about that sometime.
Well, as somebody again in theater, a lot of times what you do just to go see shows for free is you put yourself to work and you're an usher, and that happens a lot where you'll have a sold out show, which I was just talking about this the other day. I don't understand if a show is sold out, It's sold out. Like, there's not going to be a seat that just magically appears. I don't care how many shows you've seen at this venue. If you were buying something the day of and you didn't plan ahead, I'm sorry, I'm like casually getting back to casually salty like we were.
Go for it.
I am so salty about this. And so, of course, like the only thing that'll open up is having a seat behind a post or something, because that's where no one wants to sit. So then people get sat there because that's the only option. They're like, well, this sucks because I don't have a play. I don't know. But that's my whole rant. Just follow me at the Casually Molly podcast if you would like to rant about people who just show up. I also work in hospitality. I used to work at a hotel, and there were people who would try to show up on a sold out night to a hotel, and that anger transferred over to them. But not to talk about me. What were you saying, Andy? Back to you and your feelings.
Oh, no. I was just saying he's told me Joe has some good stories in general, but him working the door at the Funny Bone for the past several years, probably the past 10 years for all I know, just some good stories about, hey, this show's sold out. Someone's like, I don't care. It's like, why put you behind that post right there? There's a chair. Like, yeah, I don't care. I just want to listen to the comedy. Like, okay. And for a bigger name headliner, like,
I want that.
Oh, I can. He goes, you can sit on you can sit on his lap if you got a couple. Okay, we just want to see the show. We don't care. It's an hour and a half show. That's fine.
See, that is the experience I needed, but I did not have that.
Sometimes
awesome.
people really want to come to the show, and you just get them a seat. It doesn't matter if it's in the corner of the room or wherever. And so Joe has some good stories about that. If you ever catch him at the Funny Bone or backstage,
maybe he'll come on this podcast.
He'd be a really good guest. Actually.
I would love to have him as a guest.
I don't want to sit here and make recommendations. But
Yeah. No.
You're the booker. But
no, I would actually love that. I just have to have, just don't reject me, Joe. Come on the podcast. That's all I'm asking. No, I didn't mean to go on a rant, but that actually I did that for, oh God, what's his name? The guy who hosts Cash Cab, Ben Bailey. He came to the Funny Bone, and I bought a ticket, and it happened with Joe again. He was like, we're sold out, but you have a ticket, obviously. The only seat, it was like right where the comics usually sit when you're hosting. You've got the list there and everything. Yeah. That table was available, and he was like, do you mind? I was like, yeah, of course, I don't care. Well, then I had this very interesting man who he travels all over the world, loves comedy, and was like, I'm staying over at the hotel that's right next to the Funny Bone. You know that hotel? Is it the Sheraton? Yeah. And he just goes, and I was waiting for Jimmy because he was like talking to somebody. So he was like, yeah, tell me a little bit about it. And this is when I was first starting comedy, really, and first going to the Funny Bone. Right. And, I just told him all the people I liked, and he had such a knowledge of all the comedians that he liked, and he even knew podcasts and stuff. And I was like, wow, like that's again being sold out. I mean, yeah, I got crunched against this guy, but he was like, he was just like this really interesting 75-year-old. He was Italian too. So he knew the language. He knew where I studied abroad in Italy. Like, he was just so interesting. And then we gave each other a hug after the show. I was like, well, you know me. I'm like, thanks so much for talking to me. And he's like, oh, thank you for talking to me. And I never saw him again, but if it wasn't for going to the Funny Bone,
maybe he had social media or something.
Man, I should have done.
75-year-old guy.
Yeah.
Not.
Oh yeah. No, and he was also very gracious and very nice. Like he was not a creepy person. Yeah. I think he was just very much this moment happened. We had a lovely conversation. And he turned to Jimmy. He's like, you have a lovely lady here. And of course, Jimmy's like, I know. I'm like, but
it's going to be me at 75, probably. I'd probably just going to shows by myself and getting ice cream. Like, you guys were great. Thanks for hanging out with me. And then go back to the Sheraton and hang out at the bar. I don't know.
I think we just found out our 75-year-old goals. It's just going to comedy shows, staying at the hotels like the Sheraton.
Wouldn't that be something if I'm 75 on stage telling jokes still? Do you think you'd be that old telling jokes?
Well, look at Jim the Dad Keith.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how old he is, but he's a riot too. So, I don't know.
How would we describe Jim the Dad Keith for people who aren't familiar with him? I'll let you, because I've been doing a lot of talking on this episode. So.
Rough, vulgar, sweetheart. He's actually a nice guy on stage. He covers it all. Talks about his wife. He's hilarious. He's been doing comedy to my knowledge, for past 30 years or so. And if you ever get a chance to catch him, definitely check out Jim the Dad. You could probably catch him. I think his favorite club now is probably Backdoor Comedy, but.
Oh, well, because he gets on stage there.
Probably catch him at an open mic there, and Michael loves him too. So.
Well, because he's so. For those of you who have never met him or aren't in St. Louis, like. Obviously, he's not going to be like head-to-lining shows or doing guest sets, but it's just one of those characters in life where he's not a bad person. He's just crazy. Like, he comes in with a big walking stick at the last one to get himself up to the stage. And he's like, his favorite joke, it's like very much a dad, old person joke. He's just like, because I remember I asked him before I got on stage once, I was like, Jim, how are you doing? He's like, I'm awful. I'm married. Like, that's like, it's different. That's his persona though. And then like, sometimes he brings these props.
I forgot to mention that. Yeah, he's a kind of a prop comic, but could not be. Bring a couple props and and then he just, sometimes goes off the rails with these props. I don't know, but he's very entertaining.
I was about to say, comedian going off the rails. Nothing, nothing new we haven't seen before. So
you can catch that every week, right? But
oh man,
I was gonna say, what did you think of Ben Bailey when you went?
So I grew up watching Cash Cab with my dad. Yeah, and so I always loved Ben Bailey. I think it was more of a nostalgia thing for me to go. And so I remember when the Funny Bone said they were, it was a special event, as they always call it. So, or one of those.
Special engagement.
Engagement. Thank you. I was thinking of the word. I was like, oh my God. And of course I was like, I got to get tickets right away. And I was like, if anybody wants to go, I got Jimmy to go. I was so excited. And it was hilarious because he ended up doing a bunch of crowd work because these crazy group of ladies are in the front. And it was also another warm day in St. Louis. And so not that there wasn't air in the Funny Bone, it's just, it's hot outside. You're going to get and when you have so many people in one room, especially this was like maybe 3 years ago. So this is very much pre-COVID. Everybody was on top of each other. This lady was fanning herself or whatever. And I can't remember how exactly this happened, but these women were talking to him and Ben handled it so well. He was talking back to them. And then she's like, look at my fan. And so he didn't know what to do. He just like took the fan and he just goes, guys, what's happening right now? Like, what's going on? And he goes, I'm holding a picture of two kids that I don't know. This is getting weird. What is happening? Like the whole room was dying because of how well he was handling it. And he wasn't rude. Exactly how you should handle hecklers. We talked about this with JC Sabala on his episode. And this lady goes, I don't know who those kids are either. And literally, we were like, is it your grandchildren? She's like, I don't know. It's just a picture. I got it out of a magazine and I laminated. What? Wild story. But she turned these, I don't know. It was very strange.
I didn't get that experience, but I was going to say his stand-up was surprisingly good.
Oh, yeah. The stand-up was also great. But because
I'm like, I like you. I like Cash Cab. This would be pretty cool. And I met him at the bar before the show. He's like, oh, are you a comic? I'm like, yeah, I'm just, I don't know. I didn't want to bother him. I was like, yeah, I'm just St. Louis comic. I'm Andy. He's like, hey, nice to meet you, man. And he's bullshitted for a minute. And then this was like 5 minutes before the show. So he goes in the showroom and I wasn't sure what to expect. I just thought it'd be cool to see Ben Bailey from Cash Cab. And then he started telling jokes. I was laughing like the whole 45 minutes or whatever. And I was like, wow, this guy's actually really, because you get celebrities from time to time at clubs and it's just people want to see him because they're a celebrity. And I thought maybe he'd be the same way, but it's like this guy is actually, he's a comedian. Like he's really good. Mm-hmm. So if you guys ever get a chance to check out Ben Bailey, I would highly recommend. I don't remember him doing any crowd work. He was just kind of talking about people mistake him for Mike Rowe and
he had a great bit about windbreakers. I don't know if he did that at the show that you were at.
He probably did. I don't remember.
Oh, it was just basically it made fun of the fact that like windbreakers aren't really the best jacket to wear. It's just like because they're so thin, so you're not really warm. I'm not doing it justice, obviously, but it's a great bit. It's just I guess just because I had the ladies I had there that night, and it only lasted for a few seconds, but just the impact of him seeing, it's just like when you see a good comedian handle people so well like that. You're like, what a memorable, and then of course, but I do remember laughing the whole time, but he ended on this windbreaker bit. And I just was like, that is so good. Because it is like, what is the point of windbreakers? That's basically what it was about. But I really enjoyed him. And I actually talked to him afterwards as well. Like, I was just like, good job. And he's like, thank you so much for coming. And you could, I don't know, Ben Bailey just seems like a very genuine person. So I can understand. It was a good experience to have.
Isn't it weird too? It's like you could go to a show, you could see like a Ben Bailey, and there'll be, I mean, some headliners are really personable and they want to talk to everybody after the show. And then other headliners are just like, get done with the show. And maybe and they could just be having a bad day or something or whatever, or tired, but they just don't want to talk to anybody, or they just want to go back to the green room. And I mean, I get that, but I like just talking to people after the show, whether I'm performing or just go up to watch a show on a Friday night or something. So, and I'm sure that you're the same way. But yeah, Ben Bailey, super down to earth, and kind of drawing a blank. I'm sure there's a lot of others, but I'm trying to think who else.
April Macy was really nice too.
Oh yeah, I remember
she was
talking
sweet.
to her.
Yeah, I went and bought. I should have worn it tonight. I bought
Joe
these,
Mackey.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's actually a lot of really great.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm so happy about, and that's why I want everybody who's watching this or tuning in. I mean, obviously we have a lot of comedians that listen to this, but even people who are fans of comedy, like, keep these clubs alive and going. We really love having live comedy and having people have an avenue to see something, which leads right back into Rendezvous Cafe. Yeah. Andy, is having a live show and showing, yes, like, he's had other headliners from different places or features, but what's great is that we're able to showcase the talent here in St. Louis, like especially like Scott James, Reggie Edwards, Phil Cornell coming up on the show. It's great to showcase talented comedians like that, especially for people who maybe don't have access to it. If you're not going to a big theater or a big club right now, you can see it just in a small venue, just like Rendezvous Cafe, and you get to support locally as well, which, oh my God, Monk, it's like you're a professional or something. I thought we pull up this flyer again. Up, Vanna White, here we go. Yes. I'm so sorry if people are listening in audio. Yeah. Just casually subscribe on YouTube if you want to look at the flyer, or just follow us at Casually Molly or at Andy Hamilton Comedy. Either one is fine.
At Andy Hamilton Comedy. I think the Facebook was at the bottom of the poster. O'Fallon Out Loud, or Facebook.com/O'Fallon Out Loud. If you want to, or I'm sure you could just search O'Fallon Out Loud too. Yeah,
anything, and we'll make sure when we share this episode too. We'll make sure that we put all the links in, so that way the show is sold out.
Tickets are only $10 too.
Yeah,
you can't beat that.
And don't worry, Andy's going to bring all the fans. Don't worry about it. He's going to be there 8 hours before.
Well, it's just like anything that you learn from. Like, I'm sure you've produced a bunch of shows, and you kind of learn every time you price something, every time you produce something. So that one, it's just like, okay, if I'm going to do a show in July, I'm going to be prepared. It could be 100 degrees, cool down the room. And so, yes, we will be prepared. We'll definitely have some ice cold drinks for sure. So yeah, it'll be okay.
Even if you want my favorite cocktail, water on ice, it's going to be there. So don't worry about it. Well, Andy, before we end our episode, first of all, thank you for coming back.
Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What we always say, what casual advice would you give maybe to yourself that you know now? Or not maybe. It could do with anything. That's what I meant. Like, what would you do that you know now?
Oh, wait. Are you talking about casual advice I would give myself in the past or now? What do you mean?
Well, so like anything. I didn't really phrase it that well. I'm sorry.
You probably did. I just wasn't listening.
It's a Monday. I'm exhausted. So here's the deal. But thank you very much for people that are listening. Whenever day you're listening to this, morning, evening, night, on your way to the grocery store, on the way to work, wherever. Gratefully appreciate it. No matter how tired you are, thank you for sticking out. You heard it here first. But the question I was asking was, what casual advice would you give to yourself now that you've learned, or you should have given to yourself? Wow, Andy, I'm not really doing a good job.
I think I get what you're saying.
Yes. Do you though?
Well, I'm just gonna keep it pretty general because it's just
okay.
Because when you first said it, I was thinking back to when I started, and maybe I was kind of thinking about other comics that are maybe starting out, and So I think the best advice that
And that's what I meant.
yeah,
So,
I think the best advice that I can give to my old self and other comics that are starting out is just don't give up.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
be persistent. When I started comedy, my first year was horrible. You can ask a lot of people still, and I'm still, getting better. I'm like year 6 now. So, and I've grown a lot and I've gotten a lot better year to year, which I'm happy about that. But, it's easy. I think looking back at my first year, I mean, I wanted to quit because I wasn't getting anywhere, and I didn't know how to like write a joke and relate to an audience and be comfortable on stage, and I'm still learning all that. So I think it can be frustrating, and we still get we have bad shows from time to time. So but I think your first couple years in comedy and really any entertainment, maybe music too, it's easy to get down on yourself. So like, man, I'm not getting anywhere. Like I'm not progressing. I'm not getting booked. I just like, what am I getting? And so it's easy to give up. But so that's be my advice. Just stick with it. If it's something you want to do, don't give up.
I like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good reminder, especially even when you're kind of like, how long have you been doing comedy now?
Sorry.
You're okay.
I think I'm like about 6.5 years. I mean, you can take 2020, factor that in how you want. So,
right.
Because I started in late 2014. So, and then, yeah, obviously none of us really got a lot accomplished in 2020, but that's fine. So we're in 2021. I'm probably coming up on close to 7 years, 7 years in the fall.
Yeah.
So, but I just remember my first year and a half was pretty, it wasn't fun. And comedy, and that's the thing, comedy's supposed to be fun. So if you're starting out comedy or you're looking to start, just have fun and enjoy the process. And I wish I would have done that my first couple years in comedy, is just enjoy the journey more and just kind of be now, I think now I'm more present, just show to show and even mic to mic, and just not really think too far ahead. It's easy to think far ahead because well, I'm going to be at Rendezvous July 17th and that's a month away, and you're thinking about that, but you still want to concentrate on stuff you have today or tomorrow or this week, whether it's a show or a mic. So I think that's the best advice I can give to people. And I think for me, everything just I got lucky. I mean, everything kind of fell into place. I was about a year in and I was really frustrated, and fortunately I got a couple breaks, and it's hard to say, but who knows, if I didn't get those breaks, maybe I wouldn't be sitting here today with you on this podcast. But luckily I started, I'm serious though. But I told you in January of 2016, shortly after I was about a little over a year in, and Sean approached me to start this show. And the same time I started an open mic at Parrots Bar in St. Peter's, and I started getting booked. I started writing better and started getting booked, and I was like, wow, everything's kind of, falling into place for me. And it's kind of funny how life works like that. So, but if you just stay positive and don't give up, good things will happen. So I think that's what my whole point of that little rant there.
No, I went on, yours is a more positive. I went on a rant about how I feel like people are annoying because they show up last minute. I just don't like things done last minute. Never have, never will. I'm sorry if that offends some people, but it's just not for me. That's why I have a color-coded planner, and I'm a psycho. But I, just about for good things, making sure the good things happen to good people. But I think a lot of it too, for those of you who don't know Andy personally, Andy and I have done quite a lot of shows together. We've been together at Backdoor. We do a lot of mics together. Andy, I don't know. I just feel like I get work with Andy a lot. If Andy's on a show, I'm probably going to be on a show with him, and I am not upset about that at all. Yeah,
we do get along very well. We have the same mindset when it comes to production.
As I said, I was like guy version of
I think
production-wise.
You're very passionate person, I would say, and.
That was very polite, and I appreciate it. He's a very passionate person.
I would say, sometimes I can wear my heart on my sleeve, and that might get me in trouble sometimes. But I And I feel like maybe you're a little similar in that regard
I am.
too. So
I'll own that.
yeah, because I can be very passionate, and especially about productions and shows that I'm involved in. So sometimes, I wear my heart on my sleeve and a little too. But overall, most people would probably describe me as pretty like laid back. I don't get too,
well, that's what I like about
animated.
you, Andy, is like, yes, like you talked about don't give up and all this, but I know why you get hired a lot is not just because of all the A, B, and C's that you listed. You're always very easy to work with, and you're always very nice to people. Well, and I say that, and I feel like when people hear the word nice, they consider that a weakness, but maybe you're just like a professional. Like you're not dramatic, you don't cause any chaos, you're not like, I need this, and this, and I need, I don't know. I just feel like it's like, I'm going to put Andy on a show, it's going to go smoothly and it's going to go well. Or if Andy's putting on a show, I'm like, oh, good, we're getting a good product. So
I hope so.
Yeah. So, I mean, not to like make this casually sentimental here, but
casually
there we go.
Sentimental. Oh. Well, two good friends. We're talking about what we like to do, and we're podcasting. But no, I get what you're saying. I mean, to be honest, I get that a lot, and people be like, oh, like, people introduce me on stage like he's one of the nicest guys in this comedy scene, and sometimes I don't want to be known as that because, like, I mean, I don't know, being nice sometimes gets you, as a guy, it doesn't really help, where I'm going with that. But
women like that, like, he is so nice, and he's like,
it only gets you so far, but as far as comedy and all that goes, I mean, I just try to treat everybody with respect, and whether you're day one or year 10, and if a new comic asks me a question, try to be polite, and people like audience members too, after the show, before the show, the staff, the club owners, the other comics, just I don't know, that's how I was raised, so that's how I've always been for 34 years of my life. Just try to be nice to everybody, and treat everybody how you want to be treated, as the old saying goes.
Yeah, just stay, honestly, for me at least, and not that anybody asked me about advice here, and I'm probably in no position to give it, but just for anything in life, this has nothing to do with comedy. Well, kind of, I don't know. Well, anyway, take it for what you will. I feel like, and this is what you do really well, it's just like stay in your lane. Like, don't get in the drama. You always stay in your lane. You never cause anybody any harm. You just are like, all right, I'm here to do my mic. I'm here to do my show. And that's it,
Yeah.
Unless there's a side of Andy I haven't seen yet.
After I was in comedy for a little while, I just kind of learned to, if it doesn't concern me, I don't really even, because you're always going to be, there is a little bit of drama from time to time in the STL comedy scene, as we know, but people listening may not know. And so I just don't really concern myself with,
and that doesn't even just go for St. Louis. I feel like it's anywhere and anything. For sure. But I mean, I was a theater major. There was a lot of drama in that.
I just try not to concern myself with things that don't affect me. I mean, if people want to bicker about, their personal things, then that's fine. But I'm not going to really get involved. And as you know, the rumors fly sometimes, and they said this about you and this and that. I'm like, who cares?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just doing me. I'm just here to do comedy. I don't really care about anything else. That's why I conversate and socialize with people, and that's fun, and we all like to hang out at the bar and all that.
Yeah.
But I try not to. I've done it before. I did it in my younger years, I will admit. I'm not going to sit here and act like I didn't do it, but talking shit on people that you don't like in comedy or whatever. But I just try to take more of a positive approach nowadays, especially over the past couple of years. Just like, it's like, hey, I'm not a huge fan of this person, but they're doing what they're supposed to do. They're trying they're working, they're trying to be funny, and I respect that. So just try not to shit on people, basically. So.
Like, I was listening. Have you ever listened to Whitney Cummings' podcast at all?
Think
Good for You.
No, I haven't.
It's a really good. I've always loved Whitney Cummings, but so when she had a podcast, I was like, yes, like this is great. And since I work 9 to 6 every day, I always listen to a bunch of podcasts. But this was a little bit earlier on when she first started. She had a great interview with Dave Grohl, who
cool.
I just adore. I love Dave, and I was like, I never knew. I was like, wow, I never knew that I was going to relate to Dave Grohl as much as I did until I listened to this episode. And why I bring this up, he was like, you know, people always say like, I'm nice to people. And he's like, and I like that. Like, I like being nice to other people. And I was like, you know, I feel that because I feel the same way you do. And I know you're like, I'm a guy, but sometimes I feel like, and this is what I was mentioning earlier, sometimes people are like, oh, you're really nice. And maybe they think that's a weakness, but I almost feel like that's a compliment to the person that I'm with. Like, I want to be kind to you, and I would be, because I really like you. Like, that's why I'm always nice to you, Andy, and to you, Monk. I love you too. So
I do like it when people say that, like, oh man, you're such a nice guy, and I hope, you know, I come across as like genuine and
I'm sure people watching or listening to this will be like, what a dick. Yeah, I don't want to come to that show happening July 17th.
I hope people say I'm nice and genuine and relatable and down to earth and all that. But yeah, and I don't, you know, and I think you told me a few months back, you gave me some good advice. You said, don't change. And so I tried not to change. So.
Yeah.
And you told me keep being nice. So.
Yeah. Keep being nice.
Like, I'm tired of being a nice guy. Like sometimes it's just like people take advantage of that, or that's just the way they're wired or whatever. And so you're like, oh, I'm tired of being nice to people. And
Andy, I feel like that literally every day. I work in customer service. Do you know how many people I want to pop a top on?
But I can't help. Like, that's just, I don't know. That's just who I am. And like I said, I've always been like that. And you know, sometimes it's just like people tell me that. Some people like Charles, what's his name? Charles Pruitt.
Yeah. He goes by Black Charles.
Black Charles.
Yeah.
I'm like, can I call you Black Charles? Is that?
Well, he asked me to. He was like, do you mind bringing me up as Black Charles? So shout out to Black Charles, aka Charles Pruitt. We love you.
Charles. I like that everybody can call him Black Charles.
Well, I will say, again, he gave me permission to do that. A little bit different.
No, we were at that mic early last week. I was like, and I was just bored at more than trying to be nice. Like, hey, man, do you need help setting up? He's like, stop being so nice, Andy.
I know.
Just joking around with me. But I'm like, I'm my bad, dude. But that was fun. And
yeah, Wing It Wednesday. Yeah.
Wing It Wednesday. Shout out to that. So Charles does a good job. So.
Yeah, there's so many, which speaking of, if you're in the area, in St. Louis area, or you ever travel into St. Louis and you want to try out some open mics or look up some shows, go to stlouiscomedy.com, the St. Louis Independent Comedy pages, which speaking of, you know, Andy was saying, don't give up and work hard. And now he's got this showcase. I've only been doing comedy for about, 5 years now in March. I just realized that. And it was the same thing for me too. When I first started out, I always had, everybody's like, you have really good stage presence and you're really nice, but I was a really fast talker. Like, I think a lot of that was because of, I mean, I still am on this podcast, but a lot of that was just because my life was so fast paced. So that comes out like, and when you're doing something that's more of a monologue, I would feel like, oh, I'm talking to people. So I'd be like, boom, 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 like I would. And I was like, I don't know. Like there were many times where I would cry after sets and stuff.
Really?
And oh yeah. Cause I'd be like, wow, like I suck. Like, is this going to be any good? And now I feel so much more confident. And now I'm helping run St. Louis Independent Comedy. And I'm not saying like, wow, look at a success story here. I have so much to learn. But like, I don't know. I just was like, I'm so glad I didn't give up because I wouldn't have this cool network of people and I wouldn't have this podcast. It's like you wouldn't have your O'Fallon Out Loud and Sean Arredondo's advice. Like, so if anything.
Hey.
Look
at us moving up to north. Well, yeah, and I mean, you meet, it's cool that and if you stick with it, not only will you be funnier and more successful, you meet so many different people too, which we don't really talk about enough probably as a comedy community, but yeah, just networking and stuff.
Well, because this industry a lot is based on, I shouldn't say this is gonna sound super jaded, but this industry, not just comedy, but being in theater and when you go to different places, sometimes a lot of it is very surface value and it's all about like, well, I know this person and this person and this person. But what I have found that's really awesome is that, you know, as somebody who's in St. Louis, I don't have any family here. Like I literally have my boyfriend and my friends, and like that's really it. And so my comedy family though has really been
we're your family.
You're my family, Andy. You didn't know, but
now I know.
You're the
Casually Sentimental.
Oh my God, this really did turn into Casually Sentimental. Where people are gonna be like, "Is this episode over yet?" We're actually gonna turn this off.
We're like drunk. We're drinking and we're drunk. We're like, we're at the bar. We love
Not at all. You had, I'm sorry.
drinking Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dew, and I had ice water. So, but, well, this is great. Andy, why don't you tell us a little bit about where we can find you on social media again, and anything else you might want to let us know before we head out of here.
You can follow me on Instagram at Andy Hamilton Comedy. There it is. I'm sure you can just search Andy Hamilton Comedy. So please follow me on there. I'm trying to post more content as far as like clips of jokes and give people an idea of, because people always ask about your style of comedy and what do you talk about?
What's your style?
Well, you can go to Andy Hamilton Comedy and check out my style and check out my shows that are coming up and stuff I've done in the past. You can also check out O'Fallon Out Loud has an Instagram page. We also have a Facebook page, so you can follow both of those for all the upcoming shows. And of course, we try to post pictures of all the fun we're having. I guess that's really about it. If you want to add me on Facebook, you can. I don't care. I got I'd add people on there too. That's about it, I guess.
Yeah, there you go.
Just July 17th. Get your tickets. Rendezvous Cap. There's the poster.
It's like, again,
Found Out
Mom.
Loud.
Yes.
I'm really, I'm starting. I'm sure as I get close to the show, I'll be really excited because, like I said, this is the first show I've done in a year at Rendezvous, and I know the owners were really excited about this. We've been in communication for the past, really since January, and I've been waiting and holding off, and I felt like this was the right time to do it. So I'm excited.
Sounds good. Well, I'm excited to attend. If anybody wants to be my +1 on July 17th, let me know. We're going to go see a show together. Cool. Hopefully I don't have a show, but we'll find out. But I'll look at my color-coded planner. But in the meantime, you can also follow at the Casually Molly podcast. Thank you for everybody listening and participating in the episodes every other week, sometimes weekly, depending on our holiday schedules that we have going on. Just remember, Casually Molly has a Facebook page, a YouTube page. You can listen on all audio streaming services. I've been pretty good about connecting everything with everyone. And also, I always forget to say this, if you'd like to rate the podcast on Apple Podcast, iTunes, let us know what you think of the podcast. Which people you liked listening to. Sometimes we have repeat guests come back, like Andy Hamilton, because we always get good reviews about Andy. But I always say, Andy, now that our episode is over, what are you going to casually do now?
I'm gonna casually do some laundry.
Same.
Actually, I gotta get some food, and there's a possibility I might swing by Cooper's, but we'll see. Hey. We've really been giving them some plugs, but that's our spot in St. Peter's, Missouri. It is
our spot in St. Peter's. Monk, what are you going to casually do now that this episode is over? Can you hear
Sorry,
us?
I had to turn on the mic there.
You're fine.
Actually, it is my birthday at midnight. So I'm probably going to be doing laundry as well.
What? Happy birthday. I know I've been referencing Monk a little bit. Monk, where can we find your music for people? Monk is also very technically savvy, but he's a great musician. Where can we find your stuff?
You can find me, you could just Google Monkh. That is how you spell my name, Monkh, Monk. And you'll be able to find me on all streaming platforms, the Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, YouTube, Amazon, all the good things there. So yeah, just look me up and I'll be there just going, hey, how you doing?
I love it. Sorry to put you on the spot. We'll have to just do a full episode with you. So just get ready to get booked next month.
I'm down. Thank you.
All right. Down with it. Bye, everybody. Thank you.